G'day everyone, welcome back to Free Kick, the AFLW Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host Liam and you're joining me today for another episode of our Clubs in Days series. Today we have the Freo Dockers and I'm joined by my co-host Will. Will, how are you going?
I'm very well, thank you Liam. How are you going?
I'm pretty good. I'm off, to be perfectly honest with you, we just recorded the Essendon podcast and so it's going to be a bit sad to have to talk about a team that I don't love as much, but I'm keen as mustard because we have a huge interview, a massive, one of our biggest.
Yep, and we've also got another big interview. We've got 2 interviews in this one, which
it's actually outrageous.
Is just outrageous. We've got some great insight from a couple of Freo players. I reckon this is going to be a fantastic one.
Yeah, so I'm not even going to bother going through a whole bunch of other stuff, Will. I'm going to throw straight to you. What was Freo like last year? Give me the ins and outs. Give me the roundabouts.
Yeah, season 7 was actually probably their first genuinely disappointing season in the competition. Finished with 3 wins, 6 losses and a draw, which was quite a disappointing season following on from the previous season in 2022, season 6, where they were, again, one of the finals contenders. There was quite a few reasons for that. They barely had a fit team for a lot of last season. So they'll be looking to push back in towards finals in season 8. The list has stayed fairly consistent. The only major out was Janelle Cuthbertson leaving to the Power. So they're basically mostly looking for the players that they were missing through injury to come back fit and firing for this season.
Yeah, and there's kind of one player that we're really going to have to talk about in this episode, and it could take up half of the episode. But before we kind of go on too far, let's talk about who we got for the interview. Will, who'd you get to chat to?
So we were very, very lucky. First up here, we're going to have a chat with Laura Pugh, defender for the Dockers. It was fantastic to get her insight into the club and hear a bit more about how they're going in the pre-season and what we can expect from the Dockers coming up in 2023.
Today we have another very exciting AFLW interview. We've got Laura Pugh here from the Freo Dockers. How's it going?
Very good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Of course. And we're joined by my co-host, Will. How's it going, Will?
G'day. Very well, thank you.
Excellent. I am actually a Freo supporter, so also very excited to have you here. I've got my actually little...
That's a good
Freo.
start.
We'll just chuck this on now.
Yeah, very.
Didn't have that prepared at all.
Just for the listeners at home, I'm now the only one not wearing purple. So
Yeah. We need to sort that out.
Merch close by, Will. What are you doing? Well, so last season was a bit tough for the Dockers. Definitely going in hoping for flag mantle and kind of came out a little bit not as great as went in. What were the kind of learnings you came out of the season with, and how are you going to take some of those into season 8?
Yeah, I think, last season was quite disappointing for the whole group. Kind of got away from us, I guess, but we know, we had lots of injuries and we felt even in some of the more competitive games like against Adelaide and Melbourne, we're still able to compete, but just not for like the 4 quarters. So we still have a lot of trust in each other and what we can do. And then this year, I guess having Lisa Webb back will be, really interesting and refreshing. And, we're looking forward to what this season will bring.
So I guess on that note, the preseason's now just about to begin or has begun in a lot of cases. So how is the team shaping up and moving into this new season? How are you feeling about, pushing back in towards that finals contention?
Yeah, it was really good. We've actually had a kind of proper break following the last season. And then we have our pre-season. So lots of strength and things like that. Which has been a lot of fun. But this year just looking forward to getting back into that finals contention, definitely. With more of, I guess, a new game plan. And with our new players and recruits, which will be, a lot of fun. Yeah,
awesome. So that Docs had. We also actually spoke to one of the draftees recently, Emily. So had a few new people joining the team. And I guess you mentioned injuries before, like one of the things we saw was kind of injuries through the forward line as well. How is that kind of shaping that up into season 8? Like what type of changes are going through?
Everyone's looking pretty fit. I guess with having that break and just being able to focus on that rehab for like extended period of times and getting that right has been really good. So we're all looking pretty healthy, which will be great coming into this season, especially with training and things like that. You just want everyone out on the track. Good vibes at the moment.
Yeah, it's really good to hear. And I guess, as you said, injuries really played a big part last year. And it meant that one of the big issues for the Dockers last season was struggling to kick a winning score. It doesn't really help when a lot of your forwards are missing. So how have you really gone about, fixing up that forward line issue? Have you had any discussions about that at these early days, or is that just one of the key challenges that you're aiming to address going into the new season?
Yeah, I think it will definitely come from, I guess, even, our defence and mids helping the forwards as well. Not just, the forwards alone. It's definitely a whole team focus about scoring, and there will definitely be, I guess, the new recruits and kind of people potentially in different positions and things like that, just to see how we can change that. I'm sure that will be trialled in the pre-season. So looking forward to kicking some bags of goals.
Yeah, so moving to yourself personally, I do have to ask, because you have got a fabled basketball background, which everyone loves in the AFL circles. Would I be correct to say that you represented Western Australia back in the day for basketball?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, when I was, it feels like many years ago. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I suppose we can call you a cross-code athlete in that sense. How have you really I guess my question is, what was your pathway to get into AFLW? Obviously, it wasn't an easy pathway back in the day, and you've come through basketball. How have you really implemented those basketball skills into your game? And can you give us a bit of insight into how you've actually come into the AFLW system?
Yeah. So I was playing basketball, I guess, since I was younger, and did go through those WA representative teams, which was amazing, and played in WA. We have like SBL, which is now like NBL 1. So played that, warmed the bench really well there, which was really good. Played with some amazing women that I guess have taught me a lot about how to play competitive sport, which so privileged to be around that community. And then I guess didn't ever kind of break through into that next level there. So I had a year off, and then one of my friends just invited me down to play footy at West Perth, and it was like a reserves team. Had the greatest time. I think we got beat 100-0 the first game I played. But I was like, oh, this is great. You get to run. You're on the field for like most of the time. So that was amazing. And then, just from there, I guess kind of progressed. We then went into league, and that's when kind of the AFLW had started. So I think timing was pretty amazing. I guess with like the transfer of skills, there is quite a bit. I think, reading the play is probably a big one. Definitely not kicking. So I had to develop some very specific skills. I've loved every minute of it.
Given you came from a different sport, like how old were you when you kind of transitioned from basketball to footy and like started somewhat afresh with a new sport?
I would have been, I think I started when I was 22 or 21, 22. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that there's like girls coming in now that are way younger than that with so many years of footy experience.
Yeah, it's amazing. No, it's very good.
You've managed to, develop into a really solid defender as part of a good defensive unit, and you're now part of the leadership group, I believe, which is a fantastic thing. Have you seen your development as a player, I suppose, from that, basketball convertee into, a leader of a backline?
It was very gradual, and definitely learned off everyone that kind of was there. Like my first year at Freo, I was in and out of the side, and there was, amazing defenders that I was playing with that I learnt so much of. And then, I guess you just get the opportunities as you go, and I guess communication on the field was like a big thing for me, and kind of, I guess, how I've been able to establish that role, which is, but definitely, learn off all the amazing women before.
Absolutely.
So what are you like personally looking forward to most this season, either like personal development at the game or like games wise?
I think with this extended break, I just want to play. Just want to play some footy. We've had, I guess the summer kind of off, and then a few girls went back and played Waffle W.
Yep.
I guess I had a bit more of a break there, but going and watching those games, you kind of get the itch to get back out there. So just to play and being around the club and the team is just it's amazing. So it's good to get back into that routine.
Absolutely. And we wouldn't really be talking about, AFLW fantasy without talking about some of your teammates. For the first one we do want to talk about is Kiara Bowers, who continues to put up incredible numbers in the midfield alongside Captain Hayley Miller. I guess with those two look primed to continue being really good midfielders for, the foreseeable future, does having that real competitiveness around the ball and that leadership in the midfield make you stand taller as a unit, I suppose? And how much have you learned from them as a leader yourself?
Yeah, it's funny. I get like goosebumps when you say their names. They're amazing, leaders, and just the way they go about, all their craft and all the running and strength and everything that we have to do. They just, I guess they go above and beyond in all the areas. And I think that just builds a lot of trust with the group and in my fantasy team, definitely.
Yeah, when you play ahead of season 8.
Yeah, Kiara Bowers puts up some exceptional numbers, so she's definitely one of the first people that most people pick. So
yeah, it's amazing seeing her, like, obviously as a female footy athlete, objectively amazing compared to all of kind of some of the statistics that other players get. But when you compare the game time minutes of her and the ability to tackle compared to the men's, like, she just absolutely flogs them all. It's so impressive. I mentioned before that we had an interview recently with Emily, one of the new draftees. How have you found that some of the new players have settled in, and have you had much to kind of do with them so far?
Yeah, so we had a bit of a kind of like talent academy over the break where we just caught up and kind of focusing on skills and things like that. And after the draft, those 4 girls were down there. So it's been amazing, and it's just really refreshing to have some new girls down there, and they've all got a great character. So it'll be fun. I mean, we have to spend every day with each other now, so it's going to be good.
I suppose a follow-up question for that is the draft was obviously a bit different this year with the more mature age picks as opposed to the young draftees that we normally see. Has that changed the way that or as a team, you've gone about bringing these players in? Obviously, a lot of them probably have experience with some of the other players through the Waffle W, but has it been a bit different, or is it mostly just new players as regular?
Probably quite similar to each year. And I think, probably with drafting, we've kind of always drafted from like a range of age, I guess, in each year. Probably quite similar to the previous years.
And I suppose with a player like Emily Fiedler, are these players, because they are a bit more experienced, more likely to break into the side early, or are they making an instant impact? Have you got any idea about where they might fit in at this stage?
Yeah, it'd be good if we could just play all 30 players, really. That'd be but no, to be honest, it's open, and everyone, I guess in the last trainings that we've had, everyone's competing and absolutely fighting for a spot. So it's really good because it makes it really competitive. Makes us, it's going to make us better in the long run.
Yeah, nice. So I guess final question that we have here is who are you expecting to see a big season from ahead of season 8? Is there any kind of like breakout contenders we should be watching?
I think one of my favourite athletes, Anya Tai, tall Irish forward. I think she played exceptional last year. We just need to get her the ball a bit more. But when I get to sit in the back line and watch her run and jump and kick the ball, I got the best seat in the house. And even training with her is amazing. She's just an amazing athlete. Probably also Megs Kaufman. She had her first season last year. From the amateurs, again, had a great season last year, but I think her confidence will be through the roof, and she's probably the strongest person I've ever seen in my life. But looking forward to everyone. Everyone's come back really fit and ready to go. So it's really exciting. Yeah,
fantastic. And we've been watching Anya Tai for the last few seasons, and she's played in a variety of roles, but she seems to have really found her home in that forward line. So hoping for a lot more goals from her this season.
Yeah, definitely. We've got to get it to her.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for the chat. Looking forward to watching Dockers this year.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was a fantastic conversation to listen to. I'm sure you enjoyed it. I'm sure it was entertaining for all our listeners as well. But we're just going to jump straight into the next interview because it's a huge name.
Yeah, it sure is. And we had Mel there on the Laura Pugh one, but I think she was very disappointed to miss out on this one. We got to talk to probably a top 3 player, I reckon, in terms of favourites of the co-hosts. It's the skipper herself, Hayley Miller.
I was blown away when we finally managed to get it this year. So, Will, I'm just going to throw straight to you in the interview. Enjoy this chat with Hayley Miller.
G'day everyone, and today we are joined by a very, very special guest. We have Fremantle superstar Hayley Miller with us today. Hayley, how's it going?
Very good, thank you. Excited to be a part of it.
We're very excited to have you. You are an absolute favourite of us here on the podcast. I'm pretty sure you're Mel's favourite player. She's a Freo supporter, so she'll be very jealous that she can't be here today. First question, how's pre-season going for you?
Yeah, it's great. Obviously, we got a new coach, so there's been a lot of, I guess, learning. Both obviously you got a lot of new girls that come in, so they're always learning. But for us that have been around a while now, it's been refreshing for me personally to learn so many new things and new game plans and whatnot. So it's really tested me both mentally and physically. Always is tough physically, but certainly mentally learning a lot of new stuff. So it's been really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And 2022 was a bit of a roller coaster year for you at Fremantle. Season 6 was a great season, culminating in a prelim final. Then it was a bit more of a disappointing season 7. You wrote a fantastic article on the AFLW website, actually, about that drop-off for the Dockers and how you sort of dealt with it. But for those who may not have read that, can you give us a bit of insight into how you felt post-season, both personally and within the club?
Yeah, I think, well, for me, I had coming off a really, really solid season 6. It was my sort of breakout best sort of season that I've had through my time in the AFLW. And then, it was my first season as captain and the team was going really well. We had a few challenges. We went into a hub, but that probably in the overall was a really positive thing for the club rather than sort of a negative or a difficulty there. We were really successful when we were over in Melbourne in the hub. It was like we had the whole entire group could just focus on football. There's a few that were working, but, it was mainly just we were there to play football and enjoy each other's company. So, we were really solid and we were probably lucky, I guess, injury-wise, we were pretty good through season 6 and then come into season 7 and, maybe it was an accumulation of games or, just general load, but we had a lot of injuries, both early on sort of pre-season. And then throughout the season, it was like every week or couple of weeks, there was another sort of series and there were serious injuries. It wasn't just, little niggles that you could play through. It was, shoulders and, Juddy obviously season did a hamstring really bad, needed surgery on that. Ebony Antonio's knee, that was almost the whole season. So there was some really solid outs for us. So that didn't help. And then I think, everyone was dealing with it in terms of every team was dealing with, coming off a season at the start and then coming back and doing it again. I think the mental fatigue from that was pretty difficult, to be honest. So,
yeah.
For teams like I look at, teams like Melbourne that were obviously able to back that up and go and win the premiership in season 7, it's really impressive because I'm sure, no doubt, they probably didn't have the injuries that we had, which probably, was the catalyst for everything sort of falling away quite badly for us. But, for any team to back up the one season and chuck another one in there, it's different if you can kind of plan for that. It was almost, if you'd planned for it years in advance, you'd probably be okay. But it was, we finished the first season, then it was like, bang, we're going to do another one straight after. And there was very little sort of preparation time in there for our support staff as well as the players. So it was pretty tough to go from such a good season to then, we just didn't have the results there. And then I guess personally for me, I was injured in the sort of the short off season that we had, so I had no sort of second preseason, I suppose, going into the season. So it was a little bit, it's low on confidence more than anything. I felt physically ready by the time, we came into it, but just low on that confidence and, was my body going to sort of hold up? But it did, which is great. And I sort of built into the season a little bit better towards the end. But for me, it was pretty difficult going from such a high and trying to keep everyone, as a captain, you're going to try and keep everyone happy and you're going to keep going week to week, which is pretty difficult when things aren't going your way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've actually led straight to the question I was going to ask next, which is you're a brand new captain in that first season. As you said, you had a really brilliant individual season. It must have been really difficult moving into that second season as a new captain. As you said, you've got injury problems. There's no preseason. How did that sort of test your leadership, I suppose?
Yeah, well, I guess they're the two sides of the coin there with when everything's going well, that's when my job is incredibly easy. I think a lot of people say, oh, you've had a pretty tough, I guess, intro into captaincy with the hub and all that, which there were parts in there that were really difficult because it was more so dealing with girls' lives outside of football and how do you support that? And you don't, for me, I wasn't working. So I didn't have that exact same experience as them. I was like, well, this is great. We can be here all together for the football side of things. It's great. But borders changing and whatnot, there was a lot of just external stress from everyone's life perspective. So trying to keep that under control was difficult. Obviously, it's not just me. I've got a really great support network around me in my leadership group. Like Trent was fantastic as well as the head coach at the time, supporting us all sort of through that. And then I think, coming into season 7, it was almost, the flip side of that. Things weren't going our way. There was injury after injury. And I think sometimes the hardest thing is just getting the girls to reset and go again the next week. And it's not, every game is sort of winnable and you can be up there and whatnot, but to get the girls to believe that is the case, especially when you got these solid injuries happening sort of each week, I suppose. But to the credit of our group, I think there wasn't a lot of, we're completely out of this. And it showed against sort of Melbourne and Adelaide, where we didn't lose by a lot. It was hard because we did lose, because you just don't get that sort of endorphin or that adrenaline rush of winning a game like that, but so close to it. But I think in hindsight, like it was difficult at the time, but in hindsight, I think it puts us in a really good position going forward, because there's a lot of these girls, when they first came in, we'd been pretty successful probably through 2019 up until season 7. Like we'd been in finals and whatnot pretty much every year. I think one of the years, some of the girls came in, they had 11 wins straight off the bat. Didn't know what it was like to not have that success. So sometimes you do, as much as that's really nice, sometimes having a bit of a dip and having to really work for a win. So we did get a couple of wins at the end of last season, which was fantastic. And that builds your confidence and gets that a bit of the endorphin rush at the end of the season. But the girls that are hungry, they go, we don't want to feel how we felt at the start of sort of last season. We want to feel how we felt at the end in terms of just those getting the wins on the board. And so then that obviously rolls into this season. It's like that drive to really step it back up and, redeem ourselves, I suppose, from that season 7.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've mentioned, obviously, injuries played a huge part in the struggles of last season. So heading into this new season, how is the list shaping up on that preseason injury front? And is the list looking fit and firing so that you can keep that momentum going into the new season? Or has there been a bit of because it's been a long preseason, has that sort of been something you'd had to really focus on?
No, our group's actually in a really good spot at the moment. You might have seen that I guess it was horrible that it's happened again, that Michaela Morrison.
Yes, I did see that.
she obviously I think it was literally her first training session, full training. Like, she obviously been in training and building towards full training. I think it might have been her first or second full training, and unfortunately did the opposite ACL that she just rehabbed, and that definitely took a big hit to the group. That she's got some really close friendships with a lot of girls that went through that first rehab with her. It's horrible for her, but those girls obviously see, we all see how difficult, and know how difficult that is to go through and get so close to sort of coming back. And she didn't get the excitement of playing a game, still just in training. So that's pretty different, and will be an ongoing thing. She's just had surgery, so we'll keep wrapping our arms around her and supporting her as much as we can. So that's obviously a big hit, because she was firing that training session. No one could touch her. You just think, wow, like, she's going to be, it's like having a new recruit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're going to have to wait another 12 months for that one, unfortunately. But apart from that, we're pretty fit. There's a few niggles as you would have any time, but we're looking in a good spot, which is great. And our high performance team do a fantastic job in keeping us fit and in top shape. So feeling really good.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear, because, as we said, injuries really did play havoc on the Dockers last season. You mentioned new coach Lisa Webb, who's come on board signed a 3-year deal, I believe. Firstly, is it a bit strange having a former teammate as your senior coach? And secondly, how's she been introducing her coaching style onto the playing group?
Yeah, I get along with Webby really well, and always have, and I think that's something that she really brings to the group, is just the the relationships that she already has, and then her ability to build relationships with people and continue to build on them is one of the best I've seen and been involved in. She's a teacher or former teacher, so that helps in terms of the education and learning side of things. She's extremely organised and methodical in the way that she's set it out for us to learn it, which helps a lot, because there is a lot of new things, new terminology and things that she wants us to learn, which it is difficult, because we've like someone like myself, we've done things a certain way for 5 seasons with Trent. And then to change that and come in with a fresh perspective, it's there's challenges in that, but with Webby, I think her ability to build trust within the group and trust what she's doing, and that we will get to a point where we feel extremely confident and well rehearsed, I suppose, in what we want to do in every situation. I feel really confident that we're going to get to the season and be right where we need to be. Obviously, at the moment, we're still putting those things into practice, and that's more than fun. That's what your sort of pre-season's for. But it's been fantastic to just have a fresh perspective, new training drills. Everything is different. So it's been fantastic.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. And obviously, a new coach is always a big deal at the club. So it sounds like she's fitting in really well. A big part of the Fremantle makeup for a long time has been Juddy Donnellan, or now Cara Antonio. How big a loss has she been? Because she, as I said, has been such an important part of your club for so long. Is there anyone that you've seen just, this preseason who's really stepping up to sort of not replace, but fill in that sort of gap that she's left at the club?
Yeah, she obviously has been a massive part of it. And I think it was an adjustment, especially to start off with, for her not to be around. She actually spent a lot of the pre-season around still. She was still helping out the girls at the club, just doing some off-feet sessions, and she did all the rehab with Morrow for her first ACL. So I'm sure we'll see her around sort of helping Morrow out the second time round. So she's not completely lost to the club, but obviously not having her at training she's a loud voice, is not afraid to sort of give her opinion, and that, I mean that in a good way, in terms of learning and teaching the girls and leading out there, even if she's not got the captaincy sort of role or title, she still sort of carried that through, which was always great to have. I think the first person that springs to mind that's really stepped up is Anya Tai. And I think for her, for the first few seasons, she was injured, so she didn't, and she was new coming to the sport, so then spent 2 years on the sidelines. We didn't really get to see her sort of shine. And then season 6, she was good, but was still kind of finding her feet a little bit. Season 7, she obviously shot through the roof, which we expected her to do because she is incredible in all facets of the game. And now she's just taken her leadership in teaching others this sport that she's very new to still, you'd say, in the grand scheme of things. But she herself was a teacher back in Ireland, so she's very good at leading others and sort of, finding a way that, and our forward line is quite raw and young, and they needed a lot of guidance. So for her to be that sort of strong figure in the forward line, this preseason has certainly been, I guess, that shining light in the forward line. But in the group in general, she's really stepped up. So I'm excited to see what she can do this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to talk about Anya and your forward line, but firstly, I do have to ask, how is Ebony coping with Cara not being there all the time?
Yeah. I think she's all right. And to be honest, you wouldn't even know that they're married when they're at the club. They're very professional and whatnot. So there's not too much has changed. I'm sure. It's just I'm sure she goes home and chats to Juddy about everything that goes on at the club, and should still be her support network at home. So I think she's doing just fine.
That's good to hear. You mentioned that, your forward line is still pretty raw, and a lot of that did come down to a lot of injuries last year once again. You mentioned Anya Tai. We had Laura Pugh on for an interview recently, and she said Anya Tai, much like you said, is ready to take her game to an absolute new level this season. But I guess just as a more general discussion point, how have you sort of, as a group, discussed that forward line? Because kicking a winning score was a big issue for you, I suppose, in season 7 with that struggling forward line. So how has there been a discussion around not fixing, but making that forward line click so that you can be kicking those big scores?
Yeah, I think it's playing to our strengths, which our new game plan, it I guess addresses a lot of those issues. We're not afraid to say we're a small team, apart from basically Anya and our rucks, and even our ruck, even Mim, she's undersized as a ruck. So we're a small group in terms of height. So working to bring the ball in, not bombing it in long, because we know that unless Anya's sort of in the right spot, and she generally is, but she's then going up against 2 or 3 tall defenders, it's extremely hard for her to mark a contested ball every single time. So we need to find different ways, as a midfield or a half back, to sort of, find entries into the forward line that are going to help our forwards be better. I think it's not just on the forward line to sort of get in the right spots. Obviously, they need to do that, and that structure-wise, we certainly have some new structures in place to help that side of it as well. But I think for us as a midfield group, putting the ball to where they need it to be and make it easier for them to get marks inside forward 50, or at least lock the ball in the forward 50 and not have it bounce straight back out, is certainly a big focus for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose you know quite a bit about goal kicking, Hayley, because I believe you actually are a former club leading goal kicker from season 6. That's correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So have you been giving any goal kicking advice out to the forwards, or are you just leaving it to the coaches and to the forwards for that one?
No, I just leave that to the coaches. Leave it to them. But as my role sort of evolved, I spend a little bit of time in the forward line. But it's fantastic when I go down there now to know that we have some leaders in the forward line that are, telling me where to go and what I need to do, which is what I need as well. Coming into a secondary position that you're not 100% confident with, but yeah, I think, season 6, it was great because we were able to get sort of one-on-ones and, get the ball in quickly and create some scoring opportunities. A lot of my goals came from the short time that I spent as a forward, rather than people think that I was, kicking heaps of goals as a midfielder. I'd kicked a couple probably as a midfielder, but I think a lot of them came from the short stints that I spent actual forward. So yeah, we'll be hoping to obviously exploit that again this season and spend a little bit of time forward. So yeah, it's just goal kicking it's a difficult one because you've got to have your set shot routine's obviously super important, but being able to just have a bit of goal sense and that kind of thing. And those small forwards, our small forwards have a lot more goal sense in those situations than I do, so they can teach me a few.
Very good, very diplomatic answer. You talked a bit about, the midfield roles, and you've obviously got a very strong midfield core with yourself and Kiara Bowers. We all know how great Kiara Bowers is. But one thing we did actually quite notice was that you and Kiara were basically the two main midfielders, and you rotated quite a few players through the centre across last season in particular. So I suppose, has there been anyone that you've noticed that's really stepped up to play those midfield roles this season, or is it going to be continuing to rotate? How's the midfield group forming this preseason?
Yeah, it's a big midfield group at the moment, and there are so many spots available in that, and so many strong contenders, which is fantastic. I think last season there were injuries, so it was you kind of had to roll a few people through there and try and find what fits best. And the ones that sort of stand out to me is like Dana Reese didn't have a lot of opportunity to play midfield last season. She was kind of put a little bit more forward. But she's been training really strongly, particularly over the last couple of weeks, which is great because she was a real solid for us in season 6. She's real in and under player, works really hard and on her tackling and that kind of thing. I think the big one was Meg Kaufman. I guess she was more impressive, I suppose, in our preseason games last season. Mainly because we were sort of, I guess, trialing different things, and she was just, playing on instinct and that kind of thing, which was great. Probably fell away a little bit, or not fell away, but just didn't feel her impact as much during the season as things weren't going our way quite so much. But she's even gone to another level again this preseason. So I'd expect to see her rolling through that midfield. And we've got a new recruit in TJ or Talia Mulder. So she's come from the Waffle, and she's pretty raw, but really picking it up fast. And she looks exactly like me on our visual. And when we do vision back on the training screen, no one can tell whether it's me or her. And I see that as a great thing in terms of her ability to get in and burst out of clearances and that kind of thing as well. So there's so many that I could sort of name that are rolling through there and putting their hands up. So Turbo and I need to watch our backs, watch our spots.
Especially if one of them looks exactly like you, they might just sub you straight out.
Exactly.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Meg Kaufman, because she was a player that we were quite fascinated watching, and she has such a fascinating story as well, because she was a former college tennis player plucked out of the amateur league, and so it's really interesting to hear about her and her development. One other player that we are quite interested in from a midfield forward perspective is Gab O'Sullivan. We know that she's very, very useful wherever she goes across the field. Can you tell us if she's sort of set to be part of that midfield rotations, or is she more staying up in that forward role to help out the forwards?
Yeah, I hope she doesn't listen to this because I completely forgot about her. She's definitely, yeah, she's definitely obviously another one that's really solid in our midfield, and but she also has played a lot of forward before and plays almost the selfless role in the forward line and creates a lot of things. So I think a lot of people before, they didn't realise how good of a player she was because of the role that she played in our forward line. So then in season 6, she played a little bit more of that midfield role and it was sort of the three of us, myself, Turbo and Gabby, that were the real sort of solid of our midfield. And we were really successful and her bringing the ball into the forward line really quickly. She's a fast runner. She's super strong. So yeah, look, she's a fantastic player and she's looking sharp again this season. So yes, I'm sure you'll see her in the midfield and probably, rolling forward, I'd say too.
Yeah, fantastic. And just from the fantasy side of things, I completely agree with you about her, being a bit of an underrated player, because we were watching her playing that forward role and she wasn't scoring very, very well in the fantasy side of things. And we thought it's a fantastic role for Freo, but it's not good for us on a fantasy side of things. So we'd love to see her in the midfield getting the touches.
Exactly.
So just one final question, and we've hinted at a few names, but I'll give you a bit of time to actually talk a bit more about them. Who at the Dockers do you reckon this season is set for a really big year, tearing up the track pre-season? You think is going to have a big breakout season in season 8?
I think, they're ones that I've spoken about already, but Anya is the obvious choice, I suppose, in my that first pops into my head. I think just the way that she goes about her training, how much she's putting into learning the new sort of game plan and things like that, and helping others. The more that, the better our team goes, I suppose, is, the better she's going to play. We can get it to her in the forward line. I think she sort of understands that, and the best that we can all work together, is going to serve her and our forwards really well. She's extremely selfless though. So sometimes just getting her to, go yourself and kick the goal is what we need. But she's certainly set for a strong season. Meg, we just spoke about Meg Kaufman in terms of just her confidence in herself and her ability, I think, has again gone that next step up. So that's been fantastic. And Ailey Runnels has taken her fitness to next level. So she's been out on the wing for a couple of seasons now, and watching her in our sort of vision and whatnot, and that it's often showed how much sort of unrewarded running that she does, and she'll get a kick and then run down and get the next kick as well. And the other player that does that is Kiara Bowers. So that's the way that you sort of really stamp your mark. If you're fit enough to just continually run and run and run, you're going to get more of the ball and you're going to obviously have sort of a breakout. So I'm really excited to see what she can do. And then I guess lastly, from the new draftees, we've got 4 Irish players now, but Jo Craig has come in this season and she's another one that's got an incredible tank on her, super strong, pretty small, but super strong nonetheless. And I think as she develops in sort of confidence and understanding of her role, I think she'll be solid for us as well.
Yeah, amazing. Sounds like there's a lot of exciting talent to be watching in Freo, and
I could talk all day about all my teammates. It's hard to pick just a couple.
Yeah, and we also love an Irish recruit here at Free Kick, so it's great to hear that Joanne's having a great preseason as well.
Yes, she is, definitely. They all are.
Well, I think we might wrap it up there. Hayley, thank you so much for coming on, and good luck for the season ahead.
Thank you so much.
I still can't believe we managed to organise that, and what a great chat to have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I can't stress enough. Like, I almost feel a bit guilty because both Jono and Mel have Hayley Miller as a top 3 player, and I was the one that got to do the interview. I was absolutely blessed for that one.
Look, you were, and look, you were the one who made the hard work and effort to just be in the country, Mel, on the other hand, swanning it up on the east coast of Africa. Jono, somewhere on a holiday up a mountain in the Dolomites. I'm not exactly filled with sympathy that they didn't get to do that chat.
Yep, I mean, right place, right time, and I'm not going to say no to a chat with Hayley Miller. So, but yeah, absolutely fantastic stuff. Big thank you to both Laura and Hayley for coming on. We really appreciate their input, and there's some really interesting things that we can take from that as well, which we're about to jump into, I'm sure.
Well, let's go straight into the interesting things then. Will, let's do your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, your countdowns. Who have you got at number 1 most relevant player for Fremantle this year?
Number 1 is the most relevant fantasy player in AFLW history. Wasn't someone we particularly talked that much about in the interviews, but anyone who's played this game previously knows this name. It is the great Kiara Bowers, and I mean, we've talked about her at incredible lengths in so many episodes, but she has an absolutely bananas average of 121, which and we try and steer clear of the AFL men's comparisons, but 121 is insane in a men's season, let alone in the women's.
Just purely based on time.
Yeah, purely based on time, because she got a record score of 184, which if you translate that to time in the men's is 230 points in the final game of last season.
She's a
It
freak.
was just incredible. And the other thing about this is, and something we haven't talked about that much, we actually have increased quarter time so far is going to happen this season, which means she's incredibly fit. She can keep this level of scoring up. Because I think one of the things we talked about a lot at the start of last season was Kiara Bowers, do you start with her? Do you not start with her? She's going to be priced a mile above everyone else. She ended up being a perfect upgrade target mid-season for those who jumped on her. It basically drove my fantasy season from middling to much better.
Yes, and it single-handedly destroyed mine.
Yeah.
That timing, like Turbo becoming good and me copying injuries and trading out Dowrick were just like perfect
synergies.
Sign graph. Just like, oh, yep, Anlan becomes shit now. He's just got a crap tape.
I'm gonna throw out a very niche reference here, but every sinew came together into one perfect whole for this one. But Kiara Bowers, I mean, the conversation's always there. We can debate it for hours. I'm basically just going to start with a simple yes or no question for you, Liam. Do you start with her?
No, she's too expensive.
And I'm in the same boat. We know that she can do absolutely anything on the field. If you start with her, you are not wrong because you are probably still going to get a player who averages 110 plus. But for me, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm hesitant to spend. I mean, I think she was something like a quarter of your salary cap last season.
It's
something
too much.
Like that.
It's too much.
It's a lot. But it's Kiara Bowers.
It's not only Turbo, and she scored 184 literally the last time we watched her play. Here's the other just soul-crushingly destroying fact. Do you remember who some of the easiest teams to score against were last year? Kind of for fantasy.
Oh.
I'm going to let you in a little secret. It was Sydney, and then it was West Coast. Have a guess who they've got up round 1.
Oh, is it, Brisbane and Melbourne? No, it's not.
No, it's West Coast. She has West Coast round 1. Like, if it had been any other team, it would have been easy to be like, oh, okay, round 1, tanks are scoring, tanks, like the algorithm is off, her value will be down, I'll pick her up in round 3. Like, I'll try and pick one player that I normally wouldn't upgrade, and I'll get onto Turbo as quickly as I can. West Coast round 1. West Coast. Like, that's 130 points.
I mean, you say that, but she scored below average against West Coast last season, only 116.
And that was because she was coming off she played forward part of the time the week before. Yeah. She was injured.
And that was the other thing is she didn't have a preseason last year, which is why she started slowly. Because she had COVID in the off season.
She had COVID, and she basically didn't get because she had COVID, and her partner had COVID. Because we listened to that. If I could just and this is so selfish. If you removed Turbo from the game, it would be so much easier.
Oh yes, because she after that 116, which I believe was when I bought her, and most people started jumping on, she did not score less than 128 for the final 5-6 weeks of the bloody competition. 5 weeks of the competition.
And one of them was 184. Like, let's not beat around the bush
but
here.
But there was also 164 and 141. Like,
I'm not going to go out too far on a limb here and say she made it difficult to record this podcast knowing that I had to come on and not have her every week.
It was a challenging time, I'll say that. I was absolutely crowing because I was the one that jumped on her first. But yeah, I mean, to Bowers or not to Bowers, that's going to be something that every coach is going to have to decide. If you pick her, you're not wrong. If you don't pick her, you got a lot of money to put elsewhere, but you're going to have to make it count.
I just think the thing that makes it easier now for me is knowing that we've got Collingwood. Like the Collingwood mids and Ty Smith, who we're going to talk about from St Kilda, and Georgia Nanscorn. That's like 4 of 5 in my midfield.
It's, yeah. I almost wonder if because you can pay for those underpriced ones, you can stump up for her, but we'll address that later we'll address that later. We all know about Kiara Bowers. We could talk about her all night, but let's move on. Let's move on.
Let's move on to, if I was going to play devil's advocate for why Turbo's scoring improved, and that's because one of these players got injured. Will, who have you got at number 2?
At number 2, we have Gab O'Sullivan, who Hayley Miller forgot to mention as a midfield option, and once again, we'll apologise to Gab for that, but Gab O'Sullivan's going to come in priced at 39. And everyone who's played this game previously knows she's a much better player than that. In the first season,
suppose people haven't played previously. What has she done in the past?
Yeah, I was just about to say she was maybe not a must-have forward, but she was one of the forwards in season.
She was the second highest averaging forward. Like she was absolutely. I would have almost called the must-haves.
She was scoring 90s. Basically, didn't drop below 60. It was she's a wonderful midfield player, and she's a player that if she's listed as a forward again, which we assume she will, because she did have to fill in a bit up in that forward line because of the injuries that we talked about with Laura and Hayley. If she does have to fill in, because she had to fill in that forward role, if she keeps that forward status, she's going to be a bargain, and she's going to hopefully go back to averaging. Even if she goes back to averaging 60 like that's
enough.
You've got a bargain. Got a bargain.
A big bit of that is informed by the fact that she went out injured in one of her games. I can't remember. It was a single-digit score.
It was an 8 in round 7. That was her last game for the year.
Yeah, like that's the real thing that really pushes this over the line. Like the first 2 games of the year, she played permanently forward. Then the next 3, it was a 53, a 77, and a 41.
Still a lot of forward time.
And still with forward time, but like also playing a little bit more midfield. And then round 7 does her knee, she's out. I know that she clearly still wants to play as a midfielder, not because I've talked to her, not because I have any personal connection, but watching the Emily Feidler highlights in the Waffle W, she was playing with Gab O'Sullivan and just popping it down Gab's throat the entire time. As a pure midfielder. So if she's there again and at 30, her price will be she'll be priced at a number that begins with a 3. In a season where you were legitimately asking if we could buy someone whose price started with 120 in it, like surely she's the value play.
I agree. And especially when we were talking to Hayley, she rattled off a whole lot of names that can run through that midfield, but Freo's best midfield is Bowers, Miller, O'Sullivan. Simple as that. And if that happens, she's a no-brainer.
100%. Like this is a player that I'd almost forgotten was going to be priced so cheap in the off season, and then doing the research of this, I'm like, oh, of course, she doesn't have to worry about a discount because she played enough games to qualify. She's in. Like she's going to be priced below 40. She's 100%. Like I think Gab O'Sullivan is more likely to be on my side than Kiara Bowers.
Yeah.
Well, that was quite emphatic of me, and so we can just end the podcast there. No, Will, I'm going to throw to you for our third one. Who have you got? Who's the third Fremantle Docker most fantasy relevant?
And number 3, I've got the player that both of our interviewees said, watch out for this player, and that is Anya Tighe. Because everything we've heard coming out of the club suggests that she's in for a bumpy year. She's going to be listed as a forward. We know forwards are going to be a bit of a roulette. So if she's one that can genuinely nail down that forward role, I think she's one that could be a bit of a left field pick, perhaps.
So what's the thinking there on why she might bump up her fantasy scoring? Because I seem to remember she did that in her first proper season in season 6.
I think the reason's twofold. So firstly, she's actually got a proper position now because she was played all over the park when she was playing in season 6. She was playing at centre half back, played a bit through the ruck, played in the forward line. She's now had a proper season/pre-season playing as a forward. And the second thing for me is she was playing as a full forward last season in a team that had literally no other options. So she was getting the best defender every week. Teams knew, stop Anya Tighe, stop Freo because they don't have any other forwards. And with some of their players coming back basically like recruits because of the injuries, I think that'll free her up a bit, and I reckon she can continue to do similar to what she did against Hawthorn in the final game last year, where she kicked 4 goals and scored a 96.
Yeah, I think it's possible, and I think as roughies go, she's definitely one to watch. I don't necessarily think she has the... It's going to sound ridiculous because upside doesn't have types, but she doesn't have the type of upside that I want. She doesn't have the kind of get more possessions upside. It's very lumpy, needs goals. And I know we've talked about this a bunch in the past, but it's not impossible to have key forwards in AFLW fantasy who can be relevant players. I just think she's going to be priced too expensively. I
agree. I agree. And I think the reason I've put her there is because of all the suggestions from Freo and the players, but also because I think she's one of those players that will be see how she goes in the first couple of weeks. Maybe she comes out and scores a couple of 80s and becomes a must-have forward. And then you can do your upgrades.
I would think it's kind of, the alternative is more she has a few lean rounds because, she has a tough matchup for a few weeks in a row.
Tough matchup like West Coast to start.
Hey now. West Coast are a tough matchup. That's why, the superior side, the Bombers, absolutely pants them last year. No, I'm being harsh. I think it's possible. I just think it's unlikely.
Yeah. I think it's a speculative one, and I'm happy to admit that.
But, that's kind of what you got to do on some of these sides. They've kind of got the primo options. They're ones we're really keen about, and then we're kind of these are definitely names to continue to consider. So, Will, who are you going to have as your fourth most relevant player? Because I have a feeling their name might have been mentioned already.
It is Laura Pugh. No. It's Hayley Miller. Laura Pugh.
Outrageous.
Fantastic to chat with, but unfortunately being a small defender doesn't lead to fantasy points, but being the skipper in the midfield does. And Hayley Miller is one of those primos that you're talking about, which you'll look at and go, she's pretty good. Happy to have her in a side. Would you pick her to start with? Not sure you would, given the options around. There is potentially a bit of upside there because she did have a down season last year. She said she was carrying an injury pretty much the whole year, or the whole season rather, because her season 6 was brilliant. And that's basically what led her to being a favourite here. And if she can return to that sort of form, there actually is a bit of upside there. Whether that happens, who knows? She might be the sort of player that you're targeting as an upgrade, similar to Maddie Prespakis that we talked about last episode.
I'm actually of the mind that she fits in this awkward in-between category with Ash Riddell. I think she and Ash Riddell are the two players that I'm going to have to really consider. Do I go Bree Davey and Britt Benici, 1-2, or do I consider going up a little bit more to a player priced in the 70s? Because Miller will be priced at 73, but who has a 90-plus averaging ceiling. I think Hayley Miller and Ash Riddell are the two that I'm really fascinated. And funnily enough, they're both in a similar mould in that they're hyper fit players, and we're going to have those long quarters. I think, and they also kind of play offside to like a primo elite, as good as you can get for their position fantasy player, Jazz Garner and Turbo. I think this is I'm not 100% set on whether or not there'll be that kind of price bracket in my midfield, but I'm not ruling it off the table because Hayley Miller does have 90 plus averaging ceiling.
Yeah. Hayley Miller could be a good option especially if you pick her early if she does go back to that 90 average, but she's in that kind of awkward midfielder group where do you go for the injury player? Do you go straight up to a premium? It's going to depend on your structures.
Yeah, but don't rule out Hayley Miller. She's a player with massive upside who we know has done it in the past. And so we're kind of on to our final of the Fremantle players. Will, who have you picked at number 5, knowing that we've had a smorgasbord of like big names that we've talked about a lot for 2 seasons?
Yeah, I struggled to pick my number 5, and in the end I went for an old favourite that caused me a bit of trouble last year because I picked her to start and she greatly disappointed me.
I know you didn't click the buttons on my team, but you convinced me to pick this player as well.
And I am very happy to own up to that one because based on her season 6, I was absolutely convinced she was going to take the next step. And this is Sarah Verrier, who, to any of our listeners from last year will know, I absolutely went on about Sarah Verrier last season. I think she's a fantastic player, but unfortunately, last season didn't really work for Fremantle.
If your name wasn't Turbo, didn't work for you.
Yeah.
Come back next year.
As a result, it didn't really work for Sarah Verrier because the backline was just under the pump all the time. Couldn't get those sort of easy kick marks that were the staple of her game in season 6. And as a result, her average absolutely dropped, which is why I think there could be some value there if you're looking for a, mid-price defender who could go back up because she did have some really good scores in season 6, a ceiling of 94, which is really nice. Finished the year with a trio of 60s and then a 48 against Hawthorn in a game where they were doing it pretty easy, so wasn't down the back line much. So, yeah, I really like Sarah.
Your barrel. It's a bit of barrel territory, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It's a player that if my and I've done this a lot in a lot of different forms of fantasy, which is if my feeling from last season was right then, it's often actually right 2 or 3 seasons later. So this could be one of those. You're
not wrong. I think the problem for someone like Verrier is not only the kind of game plan that the Fremantle struggle because of the injuries, but Emma O'Driscoll kind of took a bit of a step last year up in her averages as well. And I think that definitely contributed to her, to Verrier kind of not necessarily taking that next step. And I think kind of want to take it a positive view of it. She doesn't really have a particularly low floor. It is kind of in the 40s. I just don't know if the upside's there, and I don't know if I see a game plan yet that screams yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, you said it yourself. There wasn't really many other obvious Fremantle names, so I went for an old favourite, but this is why I'm very keen to see Liam. Who is your Liam special? Because just quickly for those at home, currently on our run sheet, his Liam special box is blank. So I'm very excited for this.
You don't have enough faith in me, Will. Of course I've got somebody.
Oh, no. I've got faith, but I'm excited for the surprise.
My Liam special is Mim Strom.
Mim Strom. Love it.
Because
fill us in.
I just don't think I don't think at any point she was discussed last year. We did not mention Mim Strom during the year. I think she was
named in our best 21, and that was it. Very possibly.
I don't even think that happened. But funnily enough, she was the 4th highest averaging ruck last year. Kind of out of nowhere. It went Brianne at 80, Gabby Seymour 72, Caitlin Gould, the soon-to-be forward, at 70, and then Mim Strom at 67.5. I think we've really failed to appreciate that this was a player coming into their 6th season, who took a step up from years prior. I think that there's every possibility she could continue to improve. She's basically improved every year that she's played all games during the season. She went 43 in season 5, 55 in season 6, and 67 in season 7. I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that she takes another step up into the 72 kind of Gabby Seymour range. I don't know. I know that it's not a massive amount of upside, but it was a real tough slog to find those upside players at Fremantle this year. But you can pick worse players than Mim Strom. And if we think about it this way, if you started off with 2 rookie rucks and then you went into kind of round 3 or round 4 in the year and you were looking to pick someone up, I think Mim Strom is the kind of player you could be looking at who may have dipped to begin the year from not an extreme price versus like the elite primos.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair enough. I mean, the ruck debate's one we commonly have about do you pick the premiums, and I think you're absolutely right. She's got some upside. She's coming into the prime of her career, so I don't mind it.
Like, it's not actually that outrageous.
Yeah.
I think we've just failed to appreciate that she is very highly rated, like very highly ranked as well. Like, she's 22. She's not even that old. Like, she was picked in the 2019 draft and she's the 4th highest averaging ruck. Like, she is a fantasy relevant name. And I think it's kind of flown under the radar because we faffed around with rucks, you know, the Wales twins for half the year last year, and Liv Levicki and Liz McGrath and a whole host of other possibilities.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, not the worst set and forget, I think. So definitely something to consider.
All right, I think that was actually pretty good from me, given I started this episode with a vibe.
I'm pretty impressed with that, actually. I'll
Yeah,
definitely take that.
Yep. All right, this is what we do here. We do these episodes, we do these recordings late at night, and we just come up with nuggets of gold that we will definitely not want you fact-checking later in the year. On that delightfully entertaining note, that is the end of our episode today. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed talking about Mim Strom and Gabby O'Sullivan. I didn't enjoy remembering I didn't have Turbo last year.
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed
that's
it.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's just get to the end of this episode and then I'll tell you what I really think. So if you've enjoyed today's podcast, make sure that you're following us on Instagram and on Twitter at FreeKickWPod, because importantly, you're going to see our predicted best 21s for Fremantle this year, and you're going to see our best 21s for all 18 AFLW clubs when they do come out. So make sure you're giving us a look there. It'll help to really make sure that you know more about the sides when it comes to picking your team at the end of the year. When it comes to the socials, you can find me on Twitter at Liam AFLW Fantasy. Will, where can they find you?
Find me on Instagram and on Twitter at WillH_VI.
Well, that was a delightfully entertaining episode, and next episode we're going to have a great chat about Geelong. But until then, see ya.
Delightfully entertaining, because Geelong love it. This is my Essendon episode, Liam.
Will, the episode is already going way too long. We don't need any more talk about it. All right. See you later, everyone. Enjoy.
See you, everyone.